I would just like to welcome you all to our Fuse research event this afternoon online. We're expecting a large number of people, and I can see the numbers are still going up, so people are still coming in. So I am Amelia Lake. I am Deputy Director of Fuse, which is the Centre for Translational Research in Public Health, and I am talking to you from Teesside University this afternoon, where I am Professor of Public Health Nutrition. We're absolutely thrilled to be able to present this work alongside our colleagues from OHID this afternoon, and I'll go through the programme in a moment. Just for your information, the chat box has been disabled. We will be taking questions via the Q&A box, which you will see on the top of your screen. All of your cameras and all of your mics have been muted due to the size of this event. This event is being recorded and it will be available on our Fuse website. You can see more about Fuse, or you can tweet or Blue Sky or LinkedIn about this event, and the hashtag is FuseRE, and just below there you'll see lots of our links to our various social media platforms. Next slide, please. This is what our programme looks like for this afternoon. So we are going to be whizzing through quite quickly to talk about the background, the scene setting with our colleagues from OHID. Then Helen Moore from Teesside University will talk about how we developed this training. Myself and Tim from Newcastle University will talk about the training. Then we'll have time for the Q&A session, and then we will close the meeting. So without much further ado, next slide, I do have a slide on Fuse. This is just a little bit of background to those of you who have not heard of Fuse before. We are a virtual centre of excellence in public health research. We operate across the 6 universities in the North East and North Cumbria. We've been going quite a long time, since June 2008, and we work very much in partnership with policymakers, with local government, with members of the public, and with practitioners. And I think this session today very much shows that partnership working. We're also a founding member of the NIHR School for Public Health Research. Next slide, please. Gives me great pleasure to hand over to Sam Montel and then to Nina Reynolds, my colleagues from OHID, and they will talk a bit about their role. So over to you, Sam. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everybody. Next slide, please, Agatha. I'm going to take you through just a little bit of scene setting, really, and then I'll hand over to Nina. So Sam Montel, I'm a registered public health nutritionist, and I sit in the Nutrition Evidence Surveys and Translation team in OHID and work very closely with Nina and colleagues in the Healthy Places team. I'm going to kick off then with, I think I've got about 4 or 5 slides. And just take you through, as I said, a little bit of scene setting, which probably won't necessarily be a great surprise, but hopefully will give a little bit more detail to why it is important to improve our food environments. Over more than 30 years or so in relative terms, food and drink in the UK has become cheaper, it's become more calorie dense, and it's become higher in saturated fat, salt and sugar. And products high in fat, salt and sugar have become more available as well. They've become more promoted and they've become more advertised. And these shifts in the food environment have had corresponding impacts on purchasing behaviours and also food and nutrient intakes. And our National Diet and Nutrition Survey finds that on average, the UK population does not meet government recommendations for well-balanced and healthy diet. We all know, and that's why we're here today, we all know that the food environment can influence dietary choices And proximity to fast food outlets may make it more convenient for individuals to access and choose less healthy options, which potentially contribute to an overconsumption of calories. We also all know that the causes of obesity are very complex, but a primary driver is the increasing unhealthy food we eat. You can see from this slide that evidence supports that food consumed from the eating out of home sector, so cafes, restaurants, fast food, tends to be higher in calories, salt and sugar, plus lower in fibre, fruit and vegetables, and portion sizes tend to be larger than a supermarket equivalent. We know that those that eat more frequently from the eating out of home sector tend to not only have a poorer quality diet, but also a greater body mass index. And when someone consumes a takeaway meal, on average, they will eat 200 calories more per day than if they ate food prepared at home. We know it's no longer a treat. We know that eating out and on the go is 96% of people are eating out, and 43% do so at least once or twice a week. The out-of-home sector in the UK has been estimated to provide around 25% of average energy intake. And we also know that SMEs, smaller businesses, independents, need to be part of the picture. They're 50% of the market, and it is anticipated that smaller businesses, SMEs, out-of-home outlets, are significantly higher in calories than their counterparts in bigger businesses, mostly because they're selling larger portion sizes. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we know that our chances of accessing healthy food depend strongly on where you live. Children living in less affluent areas see 5 times more fast food outlets on their high streets. And for children living in more deprived areas, they are also over twice as likely to be living with obesity compared with the least deprived areas. And we also know from research that online food outlet access, so the apps or ordering online, further exacerbates this access. So with the greatest online food outlet access being in the most deprived areas, with evidence illustrating that inequalities in digital access have increased. And this kind of stands to reason, because if you are in an area where you have more density, a higher density of fast food outlets, that's also likely to go hand in hand with more online access in your local area as well from businesses. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a placeholder slide. It's I think a food environment that most of us will likely relate to from our own local high streets and food environments. It illustrates that to improve the food environment and to improve access to healthier choices for all, it requires a variety of approaches to address not just those physical outlets, but also in other policies around TV and online access and presence also. Next slide, please. Thank you. I thought it was really interesting to look at the, and many of you I'm sure will be familiar with the Nuffield ladder on interventions. And I thought it was interesting to present this because it sort of presents as well that wider piece, that wider landscape of work to improve our food environment. And public health obviously is about understanding the factors that influence people's health and finding ways to improve it. And the Nuffield Intervention Ladder is a framework to aid policymakers and public health leads to consider the balance between the effectiveness of a public health measure and its impact on individual choice. And I think by illustrating that broader landscape of policies, which includes policies that will be targeting the eating out of home sector, it looks at, as well as including those policies around sort of the built environment, for example, shows that sort of broader context of where that landscape is at the moment. So as well as supporting healthier choices, of course, it is also important that our policies continue to drive companies to make food and drinks healthier as well. So I just wanted to sort of end on that slide, which shows that more broader piece of work going on that is working to look to improve our local food environments. And with that, I think that's my final slide. I'm going to hand over to Nina now to introduce herself and to take you through her slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Nina Reynolds, and I'm here today from the Housing, Planning and Environments for Health team. So we work across the department and wider government to address the social determinants of health that are related to the built and natural environment. So that includes spatial planning and the food environment. So our built-in natural environment impacts health, health inequalities, and health behaviours. So 50% of the burden of ill health is actually estimated to be driven by socio-economic and environmental risk factors. And there's also a strong social gradient to this. So we have 45% of the population living in the most deprived areas experiencing 2 or more unfavourable conditions, whereas that's 5% for the general population. Next slide, please, Agatha. So we all have different surroundings and very different experiences of the environment, and local policy and plans have a great impact on this. So it's really important that they're shaped to their population's needs and it's known how that place is made up. Next slide, please. So planning ensures that the right development is happening in the right place at the right time, and this benefits communities and the economy. So the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, MHCLG, they hold the policies around the planning system. So they're the responsible government department. And then local government make a lot of the planning decisions. So they administer much of the planning system, preparing local plans, and also determine the outcome of planning applications. Next slide, please. So the National Planning Policy Framework, NPPF, this sets out the government planning policies for England and how these should be applied. So it needs to be taken into account by local authorities when preparing local policies. The framework's also a material consideration for local authorities to make planning decisions. So the planning system has 3 overarching objectives, and these need to be pursued. So economic, social and environmental are the 3 objectives. Next slide, please, Agatha. So in the December 2024 revision of the NPPF, there was a change to paragraph 97, and this was on hot food takeaways. So there's been a significant amount of work done understanding the needs of local authorities and also the research. So many of you may know Michael Chang, who spent many years working on this, and yeah, was able to get this out in the December 2024 revision. So the changes to 97 gave local authorities stronger and clearer powers that they told us they needed to block new fast food outlets near schools and where young people congregate. And it also supported reducing the overconcentration of fast food outlets, which is a particular problem in the most deprived areas. And next slide, please. And so final slide from me is just to highlight that local policies on hot food takeaways really vary, and the coverage is quite varied across England as well, as shown in the right-hand side diagram. So we do know, though, that councils are increasingly wanting to adopt these policies to future and health proof for their communities and places. As of 2019, there were 41 local authorities in England that had adopted a policy like this, but that is only 13%. These also tended to be in more urban and deprived local authorities. And just to stress that local context is really important in this policy. So that's why under paragraph 97, the kind of distance and local areas for councils to restrict isn't determined, because areas are doing it in different ways. So this is demonstrated on the left-hand side diagram. So we have variations in the specification of distance, shape, the anchor points, and also school inclusion. And yeah, just depends on how that locality wants to take it. Just to conclude that this is a new policy, so work is ongoing to look at its impact and also learn from local government implementation. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much, and I'll pass over to Helen.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Nina. So thank you for that scene setting portion. I am Helen Moore. I'm from Teesside University, and I will be talking us through how we developed some food environment training for planners and public health professionals. Next slide, please. Before I get into the main body of my presentation, can I remind everybody to put their questions as they pop into your mind into the Q&A box. It can be found at the top middle of the Teams bar. Thank you. Next slide. So an overview of our work. We were commissioned about 5 years ago now by Public Health England, which is now OHID, to develop and to look for evidence around the need for an online cross-disciplinary training programme, which would be able to be utilised by planning and public health professionals to be able to facilitate Public Health England's guidance on using the planning system to promote healthy work environments. Next slide. We had quite a football team of a project team. The work was led by Tim and myself, and then we were supported by Amelia and Claire, Hannah, Callum, Erin from Arup, and Michael from the our School of Arts. Next slide, please. So I will be repeating a little bit of what Sam already said, but just to set the scene, people who work within planning and public health have are tasked with making sure that the nation is healthy as possible, and looking at the food environment is a critical area. We know that access to less healthy food and availability of that food is problematic, with hot food takeaways springing up all over the high street and other places and online since the work started, which has detrimental effects on health from childhood to older age. And trying to adopt a whole systems approach and being able to share this learning is a means to facilitate this work. Next slide, please. So we know that local authorities can use their planning powers to try and shape healthier food environments and work towards reducing health inequalities. Public Health England have issued guidance to help local authorities and businesses create health promoting food environments. The Public Health England's Healthy Places team previously identified the need for practical support to help local authorities implement effective planning guidance. And so this project was put out tender and commissioned to try and embed health into continuous professional development for both planners and public health teams to enable consistent action on obesity across all of the piece. Next slide. So we started in this work in June 2020, and originally it was for 9 months. It did run a little longer than that in the end. We used a knowledge to action framework approach, which allowed us to use existing information, guidance and resources, to use them in a productive way to try and maximise the implementation success, but also to provide assurance that the resources we were developing were fit for purpose. Next slide. So this project had 3 phases. The first phase was a scoping exercise, and in this we carried out work that identified existing training packages and competency frameworks, which we used in both planning and health. And we also looked at existing guidance that was there to support planning and health at both a national and a local level. Next slide. We then, using that information, we fed some of that into a classic Delphi survey. This was phase B, and we used Google Forms and sent it out to individual participants from across the country, across England. And we had a 2-stage Delphi survey. The first stage, we asked respondents to suggest broad topics that could be in the training, tools that they would like to bring attention to, and approaches. And then the second stage, this was a subset of respondents from the first stage, which was agreed through discussion with the advisory group. And this responded to the work to respond to the various answers collected in the first stage. And then that narrowed the topics for delivery in the training. Next slide, please. The final stage of this project was to synthesize all of the data that we'd gathered and then to develop the resource. So we looked at all of the information to see the training that currently existed, what people what were really after, if and where there were gaps in the current training, and what kind of training materials there would be a desire for to support local authority, planning and health professionals. Next slide, please. So through this project, we found that there was already work going on to bring planning and public health together, and that although there were a few issues that needed to be ironed out, they really weren't insurmountable. And there was a lot of evidence that we gathered that showed increased awareness from both sides and a significant amount of interest among practitioners. Next slide. The academic evidence that we gathered showed that there were barriers that were in existence that prevented or hampered effective working between the public health and planning professions. It was also a little difficult sometimes to translate evidence from health to planning and vice versa. So supporting policy and practice at a local level was also quite difficult at times. Within the existing training guidance, we did find that there were some health and planning training in existence, but healthier food environments weren't the focus of this. They were more of a side element, and so there was a need to develop a focused piece of training. Next slide, please. So as I've alluded to, there was very limited training available to people on healthier food environments specifically. Our Delphi survey showed that there was a significant desire for training amongst planning and public health professionals. Excuse me, and that was really underlined that it was required to be an accessible and a flexible format. And so, in conclusion, for our project, we showed that there was a strong support of a need for some CPD training. Next slide, please. And this, Amelia and Tim will now talk about our resultant training package. But just to say, it's available on the FutureLearn platform. I don't want to steal their thunder, so I will hand over to Amelia and Tim. I think I've got one more slide to remind everybody to please put your questions in the question and answer box if you can. And Amelia, I think it's over to you. Or is it Tim?
It's Tim.
It's me. Thank you very much.
I apologise.
Thanks very much, Han. And hello, everybody. I'm Tim Townsend. I'm actually now Emeritus Professor of Urban Design, having very recently retired from Newcastle University, but I'm still very much involved with this project and I'm very happy to be here. So just over the next few minutes, Amelia and I would like to give you a very brief overview of the training package, kind of what you'll see when you log on, and just a little bit of information about the content. So next slide, please. So yes, again, just to kind of remind everybody, if you were a late joiner, I think it's worth just saying that any questions, please, in the Q&A section, not the chat. The chat is actually disabled. If you've been trying to put things into the chat, the Q&A button is actually just next to the chat button. You might be more used to using that. We'll try and pick up those at the end. Okay, so next slide. Thank you. So basically, when you log on to FutureLearn, this is the interface that you will see. You can see on the top right hand side of the page there's a little box which tells you that the course is available over 4 weeks, and if you can enroll on the course for free, this is basically what you'll be provided with. Each week there will be a new course that you will be able to access. There is a slightly different version that you can purchase, and then you get everything together, a bit like binge watching on Netflix or whatever. But yeah, if you have the week by week course, it's completely free. And you'll see there that it says, you can do it for 2 hours per week. I'll remind everybody about that in a moment. And very excitingly for us, we can see how many people have enrolled on the course. And as you can see, that was quite a lot already. And I suspect that's gone up since this slide was put together. So that's very, very encouraging. Next slide, please. So who is the training course? Well, basically, as we state here, the course is designed for urban planners, public health professionals, policymakers and researchers interested in creating healthier food environments. Anyone basically working in local government on community health, sustainability and similar topics, and individuals looking for a greater understanding of the role urban planning plays in shaping food access and public health outcomes. And the important thing to really stress here is we don't assume any prior knowledge. So you can come to this course with very little or in fact no knowledge of the subject area at all. And we will walk you through the topic, whether you're coming from planning or whether you're coming from public health, and we get everybody onto a sort of level playing field, and then we take everybody forward with the sort of latest knowledge, the latest research that we were able to draw on for this training package. Next slide, please. So yes, just to reiterate, this is the sort of nuts and bolts of the system. It's 4 weeks. You get if you're on the free system, you get a new release each week. It says 2 hours per week, and that's kind of an average time that you would want to spend on it. But just to say that you can come and go from it. You don't have to do it all in 1 2-hour block. If you've just got 30 minutes over a lunchtime or something, you can have a little look at it, and then you can kind of pause it and go back into it. I know this works because I've tried doing one of the weeks training, so it does work. You can go in and out of it, and it's all very, very accessible and easy to learn. And finally, yes, there is a digital certificate if you're interested in that when you've completed the course. Thank you. Next slide, please. So just to set out the course objectives, and there are basically 4 of them. What we want people to understand is that we can apply planning guidance to promote healthier weight environments. We want to understand the planning processes and mechanisms that are there to support healthier food environments. Understand planning roles in the whole systems approach to obesity. And finally, to reflect on cross-section perspectives on planning and public health, so bringing the disciplines together. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. We frozen? Have I frozen? Yeah, lovely. Thanks very much indeed, Agatha. So this is week 1, and you'll see it's broken down into kind of 4 sections. So as I say, you can kind of spend about 30 minutes on each of these if that's the way you want to do it. It's quite nice and flexible. So the first section is basically on the role of food environments, and this is very much setting out all of that information that Sam went through at the beginning of the presentation, thinking about what the food environment is. It's the sum of access to food availability in our environments, and as we've discussed already today, the roles of hot food takeaways in supplying less healthy, kind of energy dense food is well known. Then we look a little bit more in depth about what an obesogenic environment is. Basically, these environments which obviously promote weight gain, and both sides of the equation there in terms of unhealthy eating and sedentary lifestyles, which fuel health challenges, as we know. The third section looks back at the kind of development of planning, and I think this is quite good to refresh even for those of us who are from a more built environment planning perspective, that planning was actually developed with public health in mind. It was very much in the early days, it was to address the public health crises which were prevalent in the sort of mid-late 19th century, and both providing access to healthy food and access to physical activity and so on were very much embedded in those early planning efforts. Now, as we went through the 20th century, the two disciplines tended to sort of drift apart, and then in more recent times, perhaps sort of since the beginning of the 2000s, both professions have realized that we really need to kind of reunite these two disciplines and join in efforts to try and reverse the negative trends which have occurred in terms of promoting unhealthy communities and to promote healthier communities. Thank you. Next slide, please. So in week 2, we've turned very much into the actual planning system, and we've heard this term National Planning Policy Framework bandied about. Some of you may have heard of it before, particularly obviously if you're from more of a planning perspective. For those of you from public health, it may be a new term. This is national level guidance which really sets out the stall for what planning should be trying to achieve. It goes through and it addresses a huge wide range of things, including, promoting healthier and safer communities. It goes through regular kind of revision. I'm not quite sure which revision we're currently on. It's probably about 4 or 5. I can't quite remember, and it is due to be revised yet again at some point in the near future. Often the targets for revision get a little bit kind of pushed back a bit. So I think the target is the end of this year. It may kind of go into next. Then we have a look at more detailed level health focused planning tools, things like supplementary planning documents. Again, these are documents which guide planning decision making, but at the local level rather than the national level. And again, these range hugely in terms of their subjects and focus. So all sorts of things like, shopfront designs and historic buildings, they all have these. But in more recent sort of times, we have had specific supplementary planning documents looking at the proliferation of hot food takeaways and what the plan system can do to try and manage that going into the future. So those are covered in this section. And then we look at more cross-sector collaboration, so how planners and health professionals can come together to try and create a united front in terms of trying to address these issues. And I'm now going to hand across to Amelia, who's going to take us through weeks 3 and 4. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tim. So week 3 is very much about practical approaches, because we wanted to make something that was useful and that talked about what you could do, what Nina alluded to earlier. But not only planning policies, there's a little bit within the week 3 around non-planning community initiatives. There are case studies and challenges. And again, bringing in this whole systems approach and really thinking about this systems-wide integrating planning within public health and public health within planning to create these strategies for healthier food environments And again, you know, what Nina spoke about, the fact that this needs to be very much community-based and community-specific. So thinking about your location. Next slide, please, Agatha. And then finally, if you're still with us and still doing the training, week 4 is what the academics amongst us love, the evidence and the application. So techniques that you could use to collect and analyse evidence to support these healthier weight environment planning, what needs, performing needs assessments and evaluate planning interventions and their impact on public health, the need for effective communication and advocacy, both with communities right through to policymakers, and the way that the different professionals will use the different types of evidence within their workplaces. Next slide, please, Agatha. So by the end of this course, so we've got our 4-week course, you're doing 2 hours a week. What will you achieve? Well, you should be able to demonstrate how to apply existing evidence and advice to use planning to promote healthier weight environments, and to describe the planning process and different mechanisms that are available to local government to use as levers to support the development and promotion of these healthier food environments. You'll be able to seamlessly explain the role of the planning system within a whole systems approach to obesity, and be able to reflect on this system within, you know, with the perspective both of a planner and also a public health professional. So from both sides. Next slide, please. So we know that the environment is not static. We know that policy is not static. We know that there will be a revised national planning policy framework later this year. For example, we know that the food environment is constantly evolving, so the rise of dark kitchens, and by that we mean outlets that are operating through digital technology, usually for delivery only. Ourselves and other groups have been working in that space, so look out for more information on that soon. And OHID are aware that we will need to update and receive feedback on this course, and please do use the email address, which is for our OHID colleagues. I would just like to take this opportunity to talk about how this training has been very much a collaborative process. From what Helen presented, you saw how we used the findings from the Delphi survey to develop the training, but also how we have worked so closely with our OHID colleagues. Initially, Michael Chang, who's no longer at OHID, but who was such a brilliant team member when we were developing this, as well as colleagues Katie, Hannah and Nina. We have worked so well together as a team to get this training out for you to use. Next slide, please. So now we are moving on to the question and answer section. So I am going to hand over to Tim, who will chair this section. And then before we end, it will come back to me and I'll just close our webinar. But over to you, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Amelia. So I've had a quick look at the questions, and I think the first one is actually for me, because it's not so much a question, but actually a very good point, and that is basically that whilst local authorities can adopt policies which restrict hot food takeaways, there are often lots of other outlets where less healthy food is available. So we talk about things like Greggs and Subways. It actually sometimes fall under all sorts of different categories. Even sort of local food corner shops and garages, for example, are places where you can get, you know, Greggs sausage rolls and so on. And so yes, this is absolutely true. And of course, things are developing all the time. I mean, in recent times, we've had the development of dark kitchens, which are delivery only premises. And so all I can sort of say is that the planning system is quite, is sometimes quite slow to kind of catch up with these things because they develop very, very rapidly. And I guess we are aware of it. We are aware of the evidence around, the impact of things like dark kitchens on food environments. And we will try and build in these things into training if possible in the future. But at the moment, yes, this is very much the category of hot food takeaways, which have a very specific planning category, land use category called sui generis. And I won't go into that in more detail because it's all in the training, but it's a very good point. So thank you, Claire, for that one. Okay, and actually the second question is also for me, and that is about the definition of fast food outlets. So yes, very briefly, building on the last question, what we're doing here is talking about hot food takeaways as they are defined by planning legislation. As I say, they have a very specific planning land use category called sui generis. They used to have their own a category called A5. So sometimes when you pick up planning documents, it might still actually talk about A5 use, but actually, yes, the current definition is sui generis, and that is all covered and explained in the training package. So the third one, I think I can actually pass over. Sorry
to interrupt. Nina just wanted to come in on that.
So, sorry, Nina, please.
No, it's all right. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to kind of come in on that question as well. So in terms of the fast food outlets, so we have been working with MHCLG to understand how we can define it within the NPPF or elsewhere to give greater clarity. So when we have an update on that, we'll be in touch with planning and public health teams.
Thanks very much, Nina. Okay, so the third one, I think I'll hand over to my colleagues from nutrition, and this is about small food businesses and things like calorie information on their menus. Can you see that one, Amelia?
Yes, I can, and I know that there has been some evaluation around the calorie labelling, and I think this is very much something that might work for some populations. I am not sure it is going to be something that a small food business would be practically able to deliver on. But you are aware that there are quite a number of businesses of a certain size do have to display this. I don't know if Nina or Hannah would like to come in on that from an OHID perspective about the calorie labelling.
Sam, I think
yeah, I mean, hi, yeah, thanks. No, I wasn't necessarily going to come back. Yeah, I think just to support you, Amelia, I think we'd have to take into account the practicality. Smaller food businesses don't tend to have at their fingertips that level of detail necessarily on, on particular food nutrients, calories levels, etc., around particular foods that they make. So there is a practical issue there, I suppose, that would need to be considered. Having said that, obviously there are some smaller businesses that I think that have looked at whether they could do a similar thing, but I think again it's making sure, I suppose, throughout our food environment that consumers have an informed choice, and that's very much supported. We did some work back in Public Health England, probably back in, 2017, 2018, about strategies for encouraging healthy eating in the out of home. It was a toolkit, but we also had some healthy catering guidelines for different types of businesses. And one of those steps that that smaller businesses you could take forward was about whether you were able to provide calories on, and that would be per portion, not necessarily per 100 grams, because obviously it's very important that actually you know what you're getting from the meal or the food item that you're purchasing. But there was that advice. It's possibly a little bit old now, but yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point, but thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Sam. And just reflecting back, you know, there's evidence emerging from research by coming from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine around this. They've been looking at this, and my understanding is that I'm not sure we really have the strong evidence to say that actually this works. But yeah, there are, as Sam alluded to, there are other options for small businesses. And on the NIHRSPHR website, there's a study called Foodscape, which has lots of ideas for small businesses. So please do take a look, and also within the Fuse website. Okay, I'll pass over to Tim. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Amelia. So the next question is a really interesting one, and that's asking if there are any university courses offering master's level qualifications in planning for health, either within public health or planning departments. And it may have changed, but I don't believe it has. But certainly when we were looking at this whole issue as part of developing this training package, the answer would be no. I mean, the amount of training around this whole sort of linking up planning and health was very, very limited. We found very, very little on this, and I'm fairly certain that there were no kind of adverts or courses that we could really find where they were doing proper interdisciplinary courses. That's not to say that, you know, planning courses don't touch on public health, and I'm sure public health courses include information on planning, but there was nothing that was really firmly interdisciplinary. And actually, I think I know why that is. We did look at trying to do this at Newcastle University some years ago, or at least opening up modules from planning and health to students from either discipline. And actually, practically, it was incredibly difficult because we're very constrained by what our accrediting bodies require of our courses. So unfortunately, Helen, fantastic question. I think the answer is no. If anybody knows any different, please sort of jump up and down or put your hand up on the system. But I believe the answer is no, and I can't think that there is going to be any change to that very recently. But hopefully, everybody will do this introductory planning course. The introductory training course. And then there'll be lots of pressure, and people realize how much enthusiasm there is for all of this interdisciplinary training, and we might change that in the future. Who knows? Next question.
Tim,
yep.
Can I just jump in to say, please vote for your favourite questions, and we're trying to focus on the ones that have got the most votes. So please, those of you that are still on the call, do give a thumbs up to your favorite one.
Yeah, I think we're getting to the point where, yeah, we've got quite a lot with 2 votes at least. So let's have a look at some of those. So the next question is for Bimbola, and they ask, how can we strengthen the incorporation of healthy food environments into policy across systems, particularly within 2-tier local authorities? That's a really good question. I'm not sure I know the answer to that one. Is there anybody who'd like to take that one? And then secondly, given the challenges in defining fast food outlets, how might this affect the implementation of healthy food environment policies for a planner? I think we've actually kind of answered that second bit. I think Nina answered that quite well in relation to one of the previous questions. But does anybody have any insights on 2-tier local authority systems. I feel I'm out of my depth a little bit here. No, I'm getting kind of blank. So that's a fantastic question and something we perhaps need to kind of think about. And I will make a note of that, a mental note, and maybe we'll get some something built into the training in future if it's not there. Let's just keep going down. Okay, so we've got one from Brett. I think this one is again more for yourself, maybe Amelia, and this is about Tower Hamlets work with fast food outlets to see if they could reduce adverse health impacts by changing portion sizes and using different varieties of potatoes and oil, etc. Can you see that one, Amelia?
Yes, I can, and I've actually put some links in for Brett because this was some work that we did a number of years ago, funded by the School of Public Health Research, and we did look at smaller interventions around changing. So when you have outlets in your locality, it's often very, very difficult to, to change what is already there. So you need to work with these businesses, and a lot of these businesses are small local businesses. And I've given a link there, in fact, 2 links, and you can see the dissemination that we've produced from studies looking at reducing the number of holes within a salt shaker, looking at doing master classes with local businesses around how to make their food healthier. So, for example, portion sizes, oil, and all of that you mentioned, Brett. And also, finally, a study that worked with the packaging manufacturers to produce a lighter bite box for fish and chips. So all of that information is there within the website, and it's great for it to be taken up and used by local authority teams. So please get in touch, Brett, if you need any more information.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm just kind of whizzing through because I think we've probably got time for just one more question, and I see one at the bottom, which is asking, will the course be allowing longer for completion on Future Learn? Working in a busy environment, I was unable to finish the course in time, and now I have to pay if I want to complete it or start from scratch. Right. I don't know very much about the Future Learn platform. Nina, have you got any knowledge of this?
Not massively, no. I think you'd maybe be best off getting in touch with the platform on that. But perhaps if you had a personal email that you could use to sign up, I'm not sure if that would work if you have an alternative email. But yeah, I'd get in touch with Future Learn Help, and I'm sure they'd be able to support you on that.
Yeah. Yes, it's a really good point. I mean, yes, and it's not one that I thought about, to be perfectly honest, because it is kind of flexible within that 4-week period. But yes, I presume you do then get sort of locked out of the system. My recommendation, because I know I looked at both using my university account and a personal account, and you do get completely different sort of logins and everything. So that might be a workaround if you're able to do that. But yeah, hopefully Future Learn platform their help system would also be really would be able to address that for you. Okay, thanks very much. Amelia, I don't think we've really got very much more time.
No.
Did you want to do final comments?
Yes, please. Could I have the next slide, please? It just remains for me to say a huge thank you to the Fuse team behind the scenes who have helped us set up this webinar. So that's Mark, Cheryl, Agatha, and also to my amazing colleagues from OHID who have worked very hard with us to get this course to where it is, and also on this event. The slides and the recording will be on the Fuse website, so please do take a look. Next slide, please. I just wanted to end, because we have lots of you on the call, that tomorrow my colleague Emma Boyland from University of Liverpool, who's also part of the School of Public Health Research, will be doing a fantastic lunchtime seminar on the health halo, about misleading health communication. So a slightly different slant on the whole systems approach to creating healthier environments, this time looking at health communication. So there's a QR code for you, or visit our Fuse website as well. And it just remains to say thank you again for everybody giving up their lunchtime and coming to take part. I am sorry that we didn't get through all of the questions, but please be assured that Nina and colleagues from OHID are looking into that definition for you, because I know there were quite a few questions on that, and there will be information coming on that soon. There'll also be some blogs about this and the training on the Fuse website, so lots to look out for on the Fuse website. So thank you all for your time.